formal policy substitute to conflict of interest. But before we do that, the meeting is going to be recorded for substitute transmission, so I've got a statement I need to go to call abstain. Okay. Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Petitions Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast, available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Thank you. So, item number 1 is apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest.
Apologies for asking to be intimated. Can be moved to a roll call. Can the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely? Councillor Brooks.
In chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present remotely.
Councillor Curley.
Present chamber.
Councillor Daisley. Councillor Halier.
Councillor Halier, are you muted?
Sorry, present remotely.
Thank you, Councillor Halier.
Robert Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
I think Councillor Halier was to declare something.
Yes, I have attended at Gourock Community Council meetings. I informed the Community Council at the time that I was on the Petitions Committee, so I took no part in discussions. I don't see any reason to be recused from the discussion today.
Thank you, Councillor Halier. Councillor Cassidy, put your hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to clear, obviously, I am the Council's Community Council champion, but I've carried out the jet test. Don't feel like that will stop me from participating in today's meeting and deliberation of this issue.
Thank you. Okay, moving on then to agenda item number 2, which is a petitions update report.
So through you can so item 2 basically provides the committee with an update on petitions that have appeared before it previously and on any petitions received and how they've been dealt with since the last meeting. The details are in the appendix and happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Cassidy, note your hands up.
Sorry, Chair, that's legacy.
Any questions within the room? Any questions online? No, not seeing anything. So are we happy just to note the recommendations?
Great.
Agreed. Moving on. So moving on to agenda item number 3, which is a petition brought by the Gourock Community Council with respect to parking issues at Block Road and in Gourock. So first of all, I would like to just welcome the Community Council to the meeting. And just before we go into the formal process, and Mr McDonald here will explain in summary the process, what we'll do is just a reintroduction of all the people who are in the chamber, just for your benefit, because I understand it's obviously it's an unusual circumstance. So I'm Chris Curley, I'm the chair of the Petitions Committee, and I'm Councillor for Ward 1 in Inverclyde, and I'll just go through from my list.
Yeah, Robert Stewart Mackenzie, Councillor for Glasgow.
Yeah, it's Councillor Inverclyde North.
Eddie Montgomery, Head of Physical Assets.
Ryan Gordon Leach, Arlington, Dublin Roads.
Diane Sweeney, I'm a committee officer with Inverclyde Council.
Committee officer in Council.
Peter McDonald, legal. Yeah, I can't take the digital and customer services.
Okay, and we have 2 councillors on the online, which is Councillor Ian Heller and Councillor Paul Caston from my screen. Ian and Paul, do you want to say anything? Or are you happy with that introduction?
No, that just I'm fairly obvious councillor for Gourock Ward 5.
Yeah, you just councillor for Ward 6.
Okay, thank you for that. So obviously we've got the papers in front of us, which is the petition. Before we start on the things, I'll ask, and we also have the procedures we'll be following are actually in appendix 1 of the papers in front of us. So I'm going to ask Mr. McDonald to summarise those procedures and then we'll get started.
So the rules of procedure for oral representation of the Petitions Committee, and these were approved by the committee on the 15th of June 2017 and have been designed to encourage discussion, reduce formalities and provide a fair hearing for all concerned. The hearing will take the form of a discussion led by the convener based on the committee report and any further written submissions and oral representations made at the meeting. The petitioner, the relevant council officers may speak to the committee on the petition. Today we've got Alison Dickey, Audrey Blencoe and Bridget Miller, can't read one handwriting, to speak for the Community Council, and we've got Gordon Beach and Ed Montgomery as the council officers. The convener will read out a synopsis of the petition as contained in the report. The petitioner will be invited to confirm if they agree with that synopsis, and if not, to provide clarification to ensure the committee understands the petition. Each speaker will then be allowed an initial period of up to 5 minutes to make their representations. So that'll be 5 minutes for the Community Council, so over 5 minutes for council officers. And that's in the following order. Council officers first, then the petitioner, and then if we had any board members wishing to speak with us. Officers will then be invited to make further representations to answer any matter raised by the petitioners, but that without introducing any new material, and again limited to 5 minutes. Finally, the petitioner will be invited to make further representations, again without introducing new material, and again limited to 5 minutes, to allow me to also answer any questions raised by the officers and to summarise your petition in the commission. That will be the hearing element at the end, and the committee will then proceed with the consideration of this petition as an ordinary item of committee business in terms of standing orders, and that may involve the committee asking questions of one or more of those who have spoken in the minutes of the committee. It's important that any member who speaks to the committee in the above process will not be entitled to participate in decision making. It is also important that any member who has prior to the consideration of the petition made it clear that he or she is either for or against the petition. They will also not be entitled to participate in the decision making. This is essential to ensure the petition is given a fair and proper hearing and will avoid any impression of bias in relation to the committee's decision making process.
Okay, so there's a lot to go in here, but as we say, we're trying to make this as informal as possible. So the first aspect of this is I'll read out a brief synopsis of the petition. I'm not going to read out the whole text. So I'm going to read out from section 3.1 of the report. Petitioners have created an online petition on the council's website, 4th of June 2024, seeking the council to address ongoing parking issues for residents living in the stretch of Pop Road 66 to 68 beyond Mackinway's Point, and as it relates to Western Ferries traffic. Within this petition, the petitioners are also seeking the council to encourage stronger multi-agency working among Inverclyde Council, Western Ferries, Police Scotland and other partners to better identify this section of road as a traffic hub and to resolve parking issues. So before us, we've got the full text in 3.2. Before we go any further, does that text fully encompass your petition? So but thank you for that. So the next stage then is for officers to comment on the petition, and I look up to Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Leach to comment.
I'm going to summarise Appendix 3 because the majority of it's in Appendix 3, so I'll just summarise as well. Alright. So March 22, we received a request for resident permits between 64 and 84 Clock Road. We undertook a survey of a larger area along Clock Road. That was either side of Mackinway's Point, so going towards Gourock and going towards Inverclyde. That's just so I know overall what the parking is like on both sides of Mackinway's Point. And that survey came back and the highest occupancy was 43%. So we then get asked to drill down to just the section between 64 and 84, so available parking spaces. I take a guide of how far you should walk to should be able to walk from your car to your home. Now, there isn't a specific guidance on that, but what it does say is for a disabled person, you should be able to park 150 metres away from your house. And the only other bit of guidance I've got is how far you should walk to a bus stop. So the bus stops are 400 metres away. So if I say roughly you should be able to park your car within 300 metres of your house, that would be reasonable. So I then drilled down and took all the results and looked at the area directly beside the houses. And those houses there require 48 spaces according to those development guides for the sizes of bedrooms, how many bedrooms I've got. Now, I don't know what each house has got, so I took worst case scenario of anything up over 4 needs 3 spaces per house. Right, and in the area within 300 metres of that, there's 58 spaces and they only require 48, so there are spaces. The multi-agency working. We did have a discussion with Western Ferries and the police in 2020, must before lockdown, and there was no viable solution came up with then. We also went to the Europe Community Council meeting in November last year, and Western Ferries have said that when the queues happen, and they happen irregularly, and I couldn't tell you when they happen. I don't think I could guarantee, I don't think I could sit here and tell you a queue is going to happen tonight at 5 o'clock. So they happen. I couldn't tell you when it is. So they've got a CCTV camera, so they monitor it, and they say when they see a queue happening, they adjust their ferry times and try to put more on so the queue goes down. So they are trying to mitigate the measure. Other options, there was other options discussed at the Community Council level. We've also looked at other options, and I would drag my head for a solution. The road's the road, the sea's the sea. I don't think there's any space for anything to do anything on the road. So could Western Ferries make their car park bigger? That's a commercial decision for them. Probably a massive commercial decision for them. Could we widen the road into the sea? Massive commercial decision for Inverclyde Council, massive. There was discussion, could we narrow the footway on the seaside? To narrow it, I think it's 3 metres wide at the moment. It's a shared cycling pedestrian route, so going with a hierarchy, I would rather not do that. I looked at the width of the road's definitely not wide enough for a car to be parked outside the houses.
Sorry, Ms. Leach, I think Mr. Pasty said to select Paul. Is he back in? Or is he? Paul, Mr. Pasty, can just confirm you're still in the meeting?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Right. Sorry, Ms. Leach.
Well, it's fine. So I went out and I measured the width of the road, and there's not enough room for a parked car and 2 lanes of traffic and a car parked in a queue. So, given the unforeseen nature of when it happens, I don't know what the solution is. A solution could be to remove the parking outside the houses, which would stop the problem. When a queue happens, there wouldn't be a problem anymore. That to me could be the only viable solution that I could see that's within easy touch and reasonable. We could monitor it for a time. The emergency, I've had no representation from the emergency services that there's been any issue at this location. So we could monitor it for a period of time, but again, that's going to be a costly monitoring, because we are sending a member of staff down there to sit and look at this whenever it happens, and I don't know when it happens. And for how many weeks and how many months do we need to do that for? Or we can take a video. Still going to be costly. So just to conclude, we looked at the parking, and there is sufficient parking within a reasonable distance. Maybe not right outside your house, but the council doesn't have a duty to give you a parking space right outside your house. So there is sufficient parking within a reasonable walking distance on a lit road, on a busy lit road. And at this present time, there's no, we don't intend to do any other measures.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, you've obviously seen the response in the paper from council officers, and you've heard the summary position there. Do you have anything to add or comment on the presentations of the council officer?
I think if we just present for up to 5 minutes, am I
Yes,
correct?
that's
Chair?
correct, yes.
Super. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee, for just giving us the time to consider this petition. It's appreciated. This is just a wee bit of background and also responding to some of the things that have just been raised. The Gurrock Community Council is involved in many live issues, and that's from additional support needs to fair rents to children's rights and issues such as Clock Road that we're here to discuss today. And across our work, we're absolutely committed to community empowerment, and that is to ensuring the voice of Gurrock's people is heard and that it influences the decisions that are made about them. So in the case of Clock Road, it's been a rolling item in our agenda, it's been the top issue in our social media, and we've chat doors as well. And what has become increasingly obvious is that the Council Western Ferry responses are at odds with the lived experience of local residents that are raising the issues, and that's important. And so this is actually reflected a wee bit in the papers and what we've just heard there. And what we summarise as this, just not long after lockdown, 1 week's data shows you don't have enough parking spaces, you have enough parking spaces in acceptable walking distance. We couldn't find a solution at our multi-agency meeting 5 years ago, so we're not likely to find one now. We've got no plans to do anything despite your views. It happens elsewhere in Inverclyde. We can monitor the congestion to see if you're right, but we'll have to remove your entire parking. And the familiar one, there's been no accidents or fatalities yet. And so we don't think that really reflects the values of community empowerment. And so just ahead of further discussion, just a few points to note, and that community empowerment across all issues, not just this issue. So we lodged the petition due to the lack of progress, including the inability to secure the specific data referenced in paragraph 3 of the officer's position paper. And residents felt the survey, failed to identify the specific issues. And this was finally received by the Community Council in November, and that was after 1 year. So such a level of communication is not helpful. It's not helpful in this process. So this is not just about parking, but the wider Clock Road congestion, because both issues accentuate the issues, as I'm sure you'll well appreciate, in that stretch of Clock Road. Residents understand the daily stress of those coming to park their cars to go to work via the ferry, because they experience that same stress when they're coming back to returning to their homes. And there's good relations between them because they know, due to the issues that are, that collectively are impacting on them. We are thankful for Western Ferry's mitigating actions, but it's not sufficient and more is needed. And so to conclude, we don't come here, and make that very, very clear, we don't come here with any road expertise. That is, your job and your role. But what we do come is to highlight that role of community empowerment, that need better answers than that, and to ask elected members to support action, to support continuing to another committee, but it very much should include a round table, because those residents and multi-agency partners sitting together and exploring solutions, whether they're viable or whether they're not, and helping that understanding the process. To us, that is good in community empowerment in terms of these issues. So I'll stop there, but I want to just say that we have one of our residents along today, and I'm hoping very much that she can be really involved in the answers and the discussion. That's respectful to the chair, because that voice really, really matters. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and yes, Ms. Miller, Bridget, you will be able to speak and ask questions. Do you want to add anything on at this point in time as a resident? At the moment, the next part in the formal agenda would be then to have another statement from the officers. But I just wonder at this point in time, do any of the councillors wish to ask any questions from the initial submissions?
I'll wait to the councillor. Wait to
Okay. Right, cool. Okay, so Ms. Leach, do you want to respond?
I don't think I've got anything further to add apart from we have looked at this in great detail and we have taken surveys and we have taken time to take all the points on board. And if there was an easy solution, we would have done it. Because we don't want to come here, and I don't want to come here. So it's not that we're not listening. Some things do take time, and you will understand that you're not the only area that's got issues. So there's another 80,000 people in Inverclyde that do have other areas to deal with, and the roads department in Inverclyde isn't the biggest. Right, so there's no a plethora of people sitting there waiting to count cars and count traffic and look for queues. So we have taken a bit of time, we have spent a bit of money trying to look at it and understand the problems, but we don't see it as a significant problem at the moment. And with us not getting any responses from the police service or anything, then we don't see it as a major issue at this present time.
And moving back to yourselves before we have some questions, etc., from the panel. Anything you wish to add? This is the.
I think at this point we just say we have just reiterated some of those points within it. I would actually like to ask how much consultation has happened with local residents to come to those solutions or the lack of solutions that have been outlined. That would be quite a question for the way forward as well. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll open up to questions. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just ask the officers, so we've had the stories that you've obviously outlined, and that included a round table. So you've had that opportunity. I can't, you gave me a date and I can't find it, but there's a date that was it before the tyranny of the lockdown. It's a phrase I like to use. You also talked about future tense, about monitoring traffic, CCTV, staff time, etc. So there are two things in my head. So what I'm trying to, the question could be so I can establish, I understand the cost relevant to monitoring the traffic. I understand the cost pressures that Inverclyde Council are under, more than some. I don't understand the cost pressures in another round table discussion. So why is there potential from hearing the dislike? Because it's not based on cost. So why not a round table discussion?
It's slightly based on cost because it takes my officers away from doing other things. So there is a cost impact there for me to have a round table. I suppose we've had a couple, and as I've tried to reiterate, there's not, looking at it, there's not a solution. We've sat down, we've sat there with the police, with Western Ferries. I didn't actually stood out there on site, and we couldn't come up with a solution that's viable. I've given you a couple of ideas that we came up with, but I think both of them would be astronomical in cost. We're talking millions here, we're not talking thousands, we're talking millions to try and put those solutions in place.
We attended the Community Council meeting in November, and the Western Ferries representative did attend that, and they explained in quite a lot of detail what they are doing to try and mitigate it. So, I, like Gordon, struggle to understand what other options that there are that are viable and within a cost parameter that we could actually bring to committee, because we can bring the options to committee to say you need £2 or £3 million to widen the road, but realistically that's not something that can be taken forward. And officer time does have to be considered, external consultant and survey costs, and if we bring anything back to committee, those will have to be considered in a budget found for that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I could actually ask Peter then, so obviously just getting my head around this committee, so we can't obviously, if we were to uphold the petition and go forward, it would go up to another committee to spend the money, because obviously at this stage, we are not committing money because that's not our role. Just for clarity on the E&R would be the opportunity or the space that they'd have to consider costs.
To say what you said, no, so correct. So this committee can't make budget decisions. So if it's something that would involve a budgetary commitment, then that would to get remitted to the appropriate committee. In this case, ENR.
Environmental regeneration. Apologies for ENR. It's environmental regeneration. Thanks, what's going to be.
I think just on that point, I think what will make what the actual role of this committee is. I just reiterate that again. So the committee can either decide that the issue raised merits further action, remitting to the head of physical assets, who's sitting here, to bring a report to the Environment Regeneration Committee with recommendations on this matter, or reject the petition, bring this matter to an end at this point in time. So if we as a committee decide to put the matter forward, it goes to the Environment Regeneration Committee, as it says, and at that point then the committee decide to take the matter forward as well. Just so you're aware, that is we are effectively asking another committee to look at this, but that's we can't. And I'm very conscious of that. I sit in Environment Regeneration, Councillor Brooks, and so we've got to be careful we're wearing the right hats when we're looking at this particular petition. Can I ask a question? If that's okay. At this point in time, you talked about the lived experience within the people who live in that stretch of the road. And also, obviously, as I talked about the parking, and I think there's enough parking spaces. But I just want to say about can you discuss a bit more or give more information about the congestion, etc. That is actually part of that lived experience. Because I understand the officer is saying generally there's not parking spaces within that whole stretch of the road. But I'm just wondering if you could comment on that and also what the congestion impact is on your life.
Thank you. I'm a resident at number 76 Cock Road. I've been there now for just over 10 years. And I would say that to see the congestion for the ferry traffic over the last 2 years has become worse and worse. It's now like even tail back right out and maybe Falls Road and things like that. There's buses can't get past. We've actually got photographs here. Buses can't get through. If it was an emergency, an ambulance couldn't get through. It actually has led to road rage as well. Crossing the road for pedestrians is so dangerous. So I would definitely say in the last couple of years it's got worse. So I would maybe disagree with Western Ferries that they are on top of it, because they really aren't. And they only sort of man the entry into the actual ferry. They don't have anything to do with the traffic on Cock Road, absolutely nothing. They don't, they don't really guide people where they're supposed to go, but it's their responsibility to stop at the entrance into the Western Ferries. So the actual traffic on Cock Road is congested.
You mentioned you had some photographs there, obviously we haven't seen these before. I don't know, do the committee want to see the photographs?
Do you have two members online?
Oh yes, we have two members online as well. But if you, have you got them by email? Have you got them able to send them that way as well? If you do that, that'd be much appreciated.
Could I just also add as well, there was no record of any accidents. There actually has been a car accident coming out through Farm Road going right on to Top Road.
Can we can we just check if that's permissible as new material? I thought that you said at the start that we could introduce new material.
Well, absolutely. At this point, we're in the discussion bit, so that's very much in discussion to chair.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say if they're saying that there is part of the lived experience, of discussing the lived experience, if they've got something to show, we'll view. What we'll do is we'll first of all, what we suggest is if it's possible to send it on to the officers. Yeah. What I'd like to do is make sure that all members of the committee can see it before any members of the committee can see it. And we do that first. So we don't forward it at the moment, but I think it's worthwhile to actually just to see it because you're discussing your lived experience.
Was it not part of the original petition?
Were they provided with the original petition? They were.
No.
I mean, I don't think it needs to dispute the fact that it's used happened. That's so.
I've got a further question. Ms Sweeney doesn't have to be in the room to hear. If that's fair. Just in case.
Yeah.
There's that rule. I just wonder. So there's lots of challenges being made about obviously the fact that Western Ferries are responsible for the land, obviously not the highway. It's moving traffic. So Police Scotland's responsible, in my understanding, but I'll also think from that in a moment. The Police Scotland aren't actually here. So I'm just going to ask the officers to clarify my understanding, because obviously I'm a rookie, that so stationary traffic who are on the carriageway is not our responsibility, it's Police Scotland's responsibility to enforce the Road Traffic Act. Is that accurate?
Only for causing an obstruction to something. To muddy the water slightly, sorry, councillor.
Okay.
So for example, if you parked over somebody's driveway and they couldn't get their car out, the police can do something. If they parked over your driveway and your car wasn't there, they couldn't do something.
So volume of traffic due to the ferry, due to the road, creates an example was brought up, not my experience, but it was brought up as road rage. That road rage is a Police Scotland issue. Nothing in the council can do with road rage.
Yeah. But I suppose I challenge you that if the police move the cars, where do they go? And then do you think the next car coming is going to know that all the cars in front of it have been moved?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what part the police have in this. To the fact I'm not in the room, obviously, but they would be in the room if it's a round table. Can be that, so that's what I'm playing with.
Yeah.
Have Police Scotland got a voice in this challenge that's been brought before us? And if yes, they're clearly not here because that's not a procedure. And I'm just playing that idea. So I think that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Councillor Helen, you want to come in at this point in time?
Thank you, Chair. And again, it's just a point over that's been mentioned in asking where we've got the police here. Do the police have any prior notification or knowledge of traffic emergency vehicles being unable to travel through there? I'm sure if they did, they would still do it because obviously they're experienced in that. But do they have any knowledge that the road has been partially blocked here and has caused them any concern before?
Councillor Hill, is that a question to our officers?
Sorry, Chair, yeah, that's a question to the police officers.
So through you, Chair, I have no record of the police coming to me and saying there's an issue at this, or any of the emergency services coming to me and saying I've had an issue there, we can't get through. And they do come with issues, so I would be surprised that they hadn't come with this one if it does happen so regularly.
Okay, right. Thank you for that clarification from officers. Just on the issue, and I don't want to get too much into detail here. With respect to, I understand that from what you said, Mr. Leach, that if you have parking queuing, there's not enough room for two lanes of traffic. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Do you want me to go into the dimensions of the road?
Yes, please.
Right. So the overall road width from curb to curb, so from the edge of footpath to edge of footpath, is. I'm saying I'm just going to do that later, sir. It's 9 metres wide.
Okay.
Right. So if I take a parked car, what did I say there? A parked car is being 2 metres wide. Now, probably if I was marking a car parking space, I would make it 2.5 metres wide. Right, so we'll call it 2 metres. So that's leaving me 7 metres wide. A running lane in the roads development guide for an HGV going one way and a car going the other way, it says that it should be 6.3 metres wide. Right, so that's 700 mil for a car to sit, so if anybody can see my hand.
Yeah.
So you're only fitting a wee tiny car in there, if you're fitting a tiny car in there, so it's not wide enough for a queue in traffic, 2 lanes of traffic and a parked car.
Yeah, and my understanding is that there's parking restrictions on the north of the A770, which are no parking restrictions, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 8 to 6.
Right, and
Single
on the
unit.
south, if you go east of the area in question, there's also parking restrictions on that bit of road.
Yeah. So I think I can't remember the exact, but I can measure it and give you. But from McElroy's point, from actually coming out the car park to where the parked cars are, I think they can probably queue. I don't know if you give me a minute, I'll tell you. But 20 cars, 30 cars, so they could probably get 30 cars queued there before it causes an issue with the parked cars.
Right. Okay.
Because on both sides of the road at the actual ferry terminal has got parking restrictions.
And I don't want to put you at a spot, but obviously there's no parking restrictions in front of these houses, but parking restrictions in front of the other houses. Was these parking restrictions in front of the other houses brought in to actually reduce traffic congestion, or do we have a record of why that was brought in?
Miles before my time, I can't answer that. I'd be giving you a guess. I would probably say yes, it was put in round the corners and along the road to try and stop people parking both sides. Okay. To allow, because it's one of our main roads. Do you know what I mean? It's an E-class road. It is one of our main roads.
And probably touching upon some of the questions that have been asked by Councillor Brooks. Obviously, what we've got, I just want to check from officers. Have the members who are online been able to see these pictures as well? Yeah, have you sent it? Okay. Just to confirm, Councillor Heller and Councillor Cassidy, that you've got access to these photographs?
Yes.
Yes, I do as well. Can I just ask approximately when the photographs were taken? That's a time date on them.
That would be last summertime, I think. It was many.
That's last summer, Councillor Heather. Thank you for the photographs. It's an interesting just to view them. I think it just stands still a little bit, but it's obviously what you've already put in your submission, that there's congestion on this particular area. So looking at this, then there's just a question I've got in is, as I said, touching point from Councillor Brooks' question. If somebody's sitting in the car, engine running, waiting for queue, if there's no parking restriction, are we able to do anything about that?
No.
Please comment.
No, because if it's on a parking restriction, it would be our officers, it would be the DP, decriminalised parking.
But they're part.
It's only because of an obstruction that the police get involved.
Yeah.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, listen to this. It's obviously an issue. I can ask, lady, it's the resident down there. How often does this happen? Does it happen every weekend, or is it just at special days in the summer, Friday nights, when walking along? Is it once a week, once a month, or?
It's hard to say exactly how often it's happening, but it's happening a lot more regularly than what it used to happen. Especially if it's a holiday weekend, the schools are off. The summer holidays is more regular during the summer holidays than it would be during the winter time. But if there's anything at all on in the noon, it's constant.
Thanks. And to the members of the Community Council, you're asking here that there should be roundtable discussions with the other issues to find a viable solution. And our officers have said that they've had this in the past and they can't see any viable solution. Are they missing something? What's your ideas? I know it's not your responsibility to come up with an idea, but are they missing something? Is there an obvious thing out there? What exactly would you like to see being done?
The people's voice. So we know there's been a multi-agency meeting 5 years ago, and we recognise this is not straightforward. There is no doubt about that. But what is important to us is that the voice of the community is heard, and we are hearing some some kind of solutions around it, you know, and sometimes there's quick wins. I don't have the expertise to get into that in any detail. That's for officers to do. And it's not only the Club Road residents themselves, it's also those trying to park, it's those trying to drive fast. So I'm quite concerned to hear that even the basics of a community empowerment discussion can't even be funded like as an officer's time. To us, that would be the most basic of all steps in the way forward with this. And that's what's important to the Community Council. I'm also quite concerned to hear that even the energy around it, highlighted by the fact that police haven't even been contacted by the council before today to find out a little bit more information there. These would just be kind of quite straightforward things that we think should happen. So the basic is a conversation with the community.
Is there something that you would like to see done that has not been done apart from setting up an agency? Is there an actual physical development that you'd like to see down there at ferries that we should really take note of?
So do you mean in terms of?
Do you
mean in terms of actual
an answer to
a solution in terms of the parking? So as we said when we came here at first, our expertise is not roads. We appreciate that it has been previously, you know, considered, but we do see a lack of discussion with the community because some of them have some ideas that they may be viable, they may not be viable, but sometimes in these situations, bringing the community with you and helping them to understand, you know, what the actual issues are and what's not viable and so on. So I would revert back to that. There's no, I don't have the expertise right now to answer in terms of all the parking issues, but the issues are getting well raised and it's that voice that's actually missing. And there are some things that they're saying, I think, and this is just off the top of my head, some of them are like the bus stop itself is overly long, there's capacity and flexibility around that. There's more effective use of the drawing of parking lines. So I don't know the answers to these things. I'm not a road expert. But what we are quite an expert in is making sure the voice of the community is heard. And that's what we're just basically asking for now. And that's via the round table.
Thank you. Boss McGinty? I noticed you had your light on there. Yes, I'll do it. Is there any other comments or questions?
Sorry to come back in again. I'm not really sorry. It's enjoyed it. My favourite subject to officers. So if the pavement was to be reduced in size, the challenge would be that cyclists or wheelers may be impacted. Is there legislation in place that would stop us from reducing that carriageway and thus affecting cyclists, or is it simply council policy?
I know who you love asking that question. I know who you love asking that question. There's no legislation. It's national policy. It's not just council policy. It's national policy. And I think even if you do that, right? So the width, if I say the width of that footway is 3 metres, so you take a metre off it and make it 2 metres, it's still not wide enough for them to get there. So we're not solving the problem. And I probably do have concerns that what services is in there. So if there's gas mains or BT cables in there, then they need diverted, which again is a significant cost. But as I say, I don't think they would want us to be reducing the pavement and reducing the width of the pavement to its minimum. Certainly along that Gourock coastline, it is well used by walkers and cyclists.
Thanks, Camille.
Yeah, I can attest to that. So, any other questions of Councillor Hillier? I know.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's originally through yourself, and it's basically towards Western Ferries. We know that from the Dunoon side or Giles side, if they're experiencing something similar, because that terminal is right on a bad bend, I used to travel it fairly regular. So, and I've never noticed that the traffic is building up as much. So do we know if there'll be any feedback that they've a problem on that side, or if they've done anything to alleviate it.
Okay, I'll put that query to council officers.
I haven't talked to my counterparts on Argyll and Bute, but I would probably say that where they're queuing in that side going from Memory isn't right in front of people's houses, and there isn't parked cars, and there's enough room for the cars to get past if there's queuing traffic on the road. There's enough room. And being the noon, there's probably not as many cars passing as there is here.
Okay. And
I would just kind of point out that the traffic from Western Ferry, what happens is there's a lot of people who sort of do a car share sort of thing, and it's not just maybe one car, it's two cars. So then you see two groups of people going into their car, they park all day, they park the first thing in the morning, before it's like probably about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they the two lots get out of their cars, and they use the ferry, and then they're maybe not back till 7 o'clock in the evening. And also, there's also a taxi that comes, who actually lives in Glasgow, and he comes and parks each time he's got a holiday caravan over in the noon, so he uses this as a parking space as well.
Okay, I think just, I can understand that, but from what we've actually seen there, and then there's sort of evidence that there's a large amount of parking spaces available. It might not be the outside the houses, but there's quite a lot of parking spaces. But yet it is an interesting aspect that people are using it as a parking right facility. Is there any other comments, queries? And if not,
No.
You want to go back in again?
Yeah, can I ask officers? What's stopping the situation where you issue parking permits for the house side, and on the other side of the road, it's only available for people who are queuing for the ferry? And that alleviates that problem of people dumping their cars there after they go off the ferry or going onto it. Is that towards the viable situation?
So across Inverclyde, we only do resident permits in areas where there's parking restrictions, as in actually parking bay restrictions. So that's the only areas where we do residence permits.
Okay.
Okay, but change that.
But is it a possibility that could be some sort of solution?
It could be, but I would suggest if you do that, you will be doing it everywhere. We'll do it outside every single school. We'll do it outside every single area where there's any congestion. It's not something that we do. It wouldn't be something I would promote, because I think it would cause more issues elsewhere. And it's not the remit of the council to give you a parking space directly outside your house. There is ample parking spaces within a reasonable parking distance of these houses. So it's not as if there's not a parking. There is parking spaces within a reasonable walking distance.
Okay.
Another question?
No.
We've done we have done the responses to the comments, and now we're actually getting, we've done the commentary aspect of it, and we're now going to ask questions. If there's any particular questions you wish to ask, or I wish to ask, I think we'll be very careful. We don't start from back and forwards again, just for that point. So you can put it as a point of saying it's not respecting a comment from officers.
Okay, so we're talking questions. So I suppose my question would be, and probably for the residents to come in as well, is do they think and agree with the officers that there is ample and sufficient space outside their house? Sorry, within the reasonable walking distance as well.
I actually disagree that there's ample parking spaces. On many occasions, there is a road when you turn up the Old Farm Road, then you take the first left behind, which is directly behind the house, and then there's East Glass, and that's congested. But all the residents living there can't park spaces, so I disagree that there's enough spaces.
Thank you. Right, I'm looking around and online. I don't see any other lights or any hands up. So with that, what will happen now is we'll consider the petition, and we'll come back for which considered petition will go back for we'll either decide we're going to have a public vote and we'll let you know what the results are. Okay. You know good? Right, so then. Okay, so I've been told we don't get the public session. I'll get right from that one. So we've got to get private sessions. We have this in public. So what do members think?
You know, for motion?
Well,
Well, we've had discussions, so I'm asking for people's instructions. Are you open for a motion at this stage? Sorry, not instruction. Advice. Yeah, I'm happy to move it 2.2A that decision is raised and passed the environmental regeneration.
Okay. That we got so is anybody otherwise minded? No, nobody's otherwise minded, so that is the recommendation 2.2A has been agreed unanimously by the Petitions Committee.